One of my amazing clients recently launched her brand and made over $35,000 in revenue. To celebrate this incredible accomplishment, I wanted to break down the strategies we used to help her have a successful launch, as well as dissect what she did in the hopes that you can now have a roadmap to accomplish your launch goals as well. So to give you some context, my client started a sustainable athletic brand because she experienced a pain point in her life, and her pain point was the fact that she was a little bit bigger chested and she could just never find a sports bra that actually fit her, felt supportive, and allowed her to do things like running, high intensity interval training. She was just buying so many sports bras and none of them really worked. And so she got really frustrated, and she also really couldn't find a sustainable athletic brand that was like supportive, stylish, but also conscious, and that's why she sought out to do her own brand. So that was kind of the inception, and then we started working together because she really wanted to build an intentional and profitable brand, not just a hobby. She wanted this to be her full-time job. She wanted to make a career out of it. She wanted to make a living out of it, and so we started working together with that intention from the get-go. And if you listened to last week's episode, setting that intention is so important. First and foremost, you need to recognize this is not a hobby, this is a business, and you should be treating it as such. The next thing she did was identify who her ideal customer was. This is something I talk about all the time, but you need to figure out who your brand is for. You need to figure out who you're supporting, what products you're going to be making for them. And so for her, she decided to make herself and like her friends her ideal customer because they were all kind of the same. And these women were folks that were active, really still wanted to be stylish as well, and transition like the workout to maybe brunch and maybe even errands on the weekends. So it's kind of like that busy on the go girl, but also someone that has difficulty finding things that fit because maybe they have, a bigger bust or whatever it is. And so there was that piece, but then of course, beyond the functionality of it fitting properly and being supportive and obviously stylish as well, she wanted it to be truly a little bit more conscious. She knew that a lot of athletic brands nowadays are partaking in a lot of greenwashing with like the recycled polyester or whatever it is. And so she really wanted to try to find the best materials possible and just make it as conscious as possible. So that was kind of the ethos. That was the ideal customer that she picked. And so she was really, really focused on that. And I always say you need to pick an ideal customer or target consumer that you're passionate about. And so a lot of the times my clients end up choosing whatever they're dealing with because they find that it is something that they're struggling with. There is a gap in the market, and a lot of their friends and other people that they know may also experience similar things, which is good. But the one caveat here that I always say is that you can't assume that your lived experience is everyone else's. So you do still need to go out and get that market research, get that data so that you can make your business decisions based off data and not just your own experiences. So she did that. She did surveys, she did interviews. She did find that there was a huge gap for truly supportive sports bras that were stylish, were functional, and also ethical and sustainable. So she decided that was the ideal customer she was going to target, and that's the problem she was going to work with. Once you have your ideal customer and you figure out a pain point and a problem and you feel like you're onto something, that's when you can actually start to conceptualize and put pen to paper, because you might have an idea of starting a fashion brand, but until there's actually demand for a product you want to do, I would just hit pause because you don't even know if it's worthwhile to do something, because we don't really just need another t-shirt brand or another sweater brand. Like, we actually need a product that's going to solve a problem. So as soon as she realized there was a gap, then we were like, okay, let's dive in, let's actually do this. And the next step is really to make a plan and know exactly A to Z what needs to be done, when it needs to be done by. And I know this process, this step is so overwhelming because you're starting a business from scratch, but not only that, you're starting a product-based business too. So that just adds a layer of complexity. And if you've never done something like this before, or even if you have, but you've never done a product-based business, it can be so overwhelming and stressful because you're constantly worrying about like missing a step, things falling through the cracks, when you should be doing what, right? Like, should you start to build your audience before you have the product, or do you build the product first? And then how does sourcing fit in? When do you figure out your launch plan? Like, there's just so much to do on top of everything else. And because of that, I feel like a lot of people end up procrastinating their brand, or they end up giving up, and I don't want that to happen. And because of that, I have created the Build Your Brand Blueprint. I am so excited about this because it is going to have the A to Z blueprint, or the A to Z roadmap of exactly how you go from idea to successful and profitable fashion brand. In there, you're going to have all the steps you need to take in order to successfully launch. And all you need to do is just simply like input your launch date. You just need to plop in ideally when you need to launch. And then all the tasks will auto-populate. You'll know exactly when to do what. There's a checkbox. You can literally check things off as you're going, and you just don't need to worry about it anymore because I've done this work for you. And this is such a crucial step because you do need to have an inventory of everything that needs to be accomplished, when it should be done by, so that you can start to figure out if you're going to do a lot of this stuff, if you're going to outsource it to other people. But you do need to have a roadmap and a plan and a blueprint. So that's why I created this Build Your Brand Blueprint. You can get more info and purchase it at recloseted.com/blueprint. And because we're launching it this month, you're actually going to be able to get it for $20 off with code LAUNCH at checkout. So moving forward, it's going to be $48, which is still going to be such a steal. But for this month only, because we're launching it, you can use code LAUNCH at checkout for $20 off. So you can get it for $28. And this is going to be something that you can use for every single launch moving forward too, because every single time you release a new product, you should go through a lot of these steps as well. Again, the link to get it is recloseted.com/blueprint, and you can use code LAUNCH for $20 off. So my client set the intention first and foremost about creating a profitable business, and then she figured out her ideal customer. She realized there was a problem and a pain point, and then she took an inventory of everything that needed to be done because she validated it and she realized there was a gap in the market. After that, we then moved into her product. So she worked with the designer to design it to make sure that the sports bra was perfect because fit is such an important part of her brand because, yeah, as you know, like bigger breasts, it's harder to do the fit. So she worked so hard on that fit. And then also from a material perspective, we went really, really deep on sourcing to find the most innovative, the most cutting edge materials for her sports bras. And so the product was one thing that she really invested in. And I always say you need to invest time as well as budget and resources into your product because they're quite literally making you money. And if you want to differentiate yourself amongst all the other fashion brands, like your product has to be gold. So the product was the next piece that she really, really dived into. So as you can tell, the recipe so far is that she set the intention, she validated that there was a need for what she was experiencing, and there was other people that were really excited about the fact that she was going to tackle this problem. She listed out everything that needed to be done, and she utilized our blueprint to do that. And then also she made sure the product was really good. And then the next step to all of this is the marketing piece. So the marketing piece is so important because if she had just siloed herself and focused on the product, yes, she would have had a great product for herself and her friends, but no one else would have known about it. And at the end of the day, you need to get your product to your ideal customer. And they might be strangers to you right now, but you need a lot of them to know about it so that you can be profitable and you can actually make your launch goals, right? So the marketing piece was really important. She was so intentional about choosing the one social media platform, which I always talk about. Like I want all my clients and everyone listening to only work on one social media platform and pair that with email marketing, because that way you can actually build it up and you can actually be able to have enough people on there, make the sales you need to, and then after that you can of course grow and scale and be on more platforms. But to start with, because you have limited time, limited budget, and limited energy, really like invest it into that one platform so that it can grow and scale. So anyways, my client figured out that her ideal customer, they were on Instagram a lot because she kind of was targeting more of an older demographic, and so she really decided to focus on Instagram. She did a lot of like workout content, she did a lot of motivational content, and she just built her community over 8 months. I typically say you want to have at least 6 months, but obviously if you have more time, go for it. And a lot of people always ask me like, okay, Selina, I get it. I need to build my community. I get it. It takes time, but I don't have my products yet. So what do I post? And I'm always like, this is actually the best time, and this is super advantageous to you because if you think about the last account you followed, it's probably because you got value out of it. And you know, it kind of sucks if you're following a brand account and all they're doing 24/7 is just pushing their products, right? Like no one really wants to follow an account that's just pushing their products 24/7. It kind of gets a little bit annoying and spammy. And so the fact that she didn't have any products yet really helped this. Like the only thing she did was give value. Like she posted so many great workout tips, tips, recovery tips, stretching tips, motivational tips. She interviewed a bunch of cool people in the workout community. Like, she was able to just build a community of people that were her ideal customer. And that is so golden because they then are aware of you, it builds trust, and then when you actually do launch, you'll be able to sell your products very easily. And so the community building piece and the marketing piece, I think she did really well. She took my strategy and she really executed it to the T. And that's so important, right? Like, you need an amazing product, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, you need people to sell it to, and both take time. And so that's why in the blueprint, I have laid out when you need to start making your community and like when you need to start to put out content and what kind of content you need to be putting up, because it needs to be intentional. And a lot of people start way too late. They maybe start like really seriously posting 3 months before the launch because they're like, oh shoot, I need to start posting. I need people to sell to. And it doesn't happen across 3 months, unfortunately, right? Like, you can't build a big enough community. So she did a really good job of really nurturing her community over 8 months. And then when it did come time to her launch, this is key. So in the blueprint, everything's laid out from a timeline perspective. And I think people are always surprised how much time things take. Like I just mentioned, she took 8 months to really intentionally curate her community. And then for her launch, she started 4 months in advance, like hardcore planning for it. And in the blueprint, I've laid this out because it does take a lot more time than you think. And from a launch perspective, the strategy is the strategy I get all my clients to do. But essentially, we split your launch into 2 phases. The first phase is called your pre-launch phase. And the second phase is called your launch phase. And so everything that you post normally, I like to call business as usual or BAU content. This is content that is going to add value to people's lives. This is content where you're raising your brand awareness. People are finding out about you. Like, it's drawing people in and you're warming people up. And then as soon as you know you're going to be launching, then you move into a pre-launch phase first. This is about a month to month and a half where you're just warming up your audience. You're building trust again, you're building credibility again, and you're just hyping up the launch. You want people to be literally counting down the days until you launch this product. And so that's exactly what she did. She built her community over 8 months, and then 1.5 months before she launched, she went into her pre-launch phase where she introduced herself as a founder. She showed a lot of behind the scenes stuff. She also really hyped up the problem that she was facing, where she couldn't find any sports bras that really fit and also aligned with her values and were stylish as well. And then towards the end of the pre-launch, she started hyping up the launch date. Like, she would be like, hey, we're a month out, we're 2 weeks out, we're a week out, the launch is in 5 days, 3 days, 2 days. Like, it was a countdown and everyone was just so stoked and so excited. I think that's such a missed opportunity. A lot of people just launch and then it's like, woohoo, it kind of fizzles out. Like, if people are counting down the days, you know, people are getting ready to buy, right? So that was something that she did too. That was just great. She really warmed everyone up, got them ready. And then come launch, I always get my clients to launch over 2 weeks. That way it creates a little bit of urgency to buy, because if you can buy these things all the time, I feel like people procrastinate and they forget about it. So I made her do the 2-week launch, and throughout the entire 2 weeks, everything's pre-planned. So what you're posting every day, what you're saying every day, what the goal is every day. So all of that is pre-planned, and that's in the blueprint as well. But it is really important to follow a roadmap so that every single day when you wake up, you know exactly what the objective is. And throughout the 2 weeks, she really embraced the 2 main priorities that I always tell my clients, which are to sell and to promote. That's it. You are just selling your pieces, you are just promoting, and you need to shout this from the rooftops. People need to know you've launched. People need to know they can buy these products. And so don't shy away from it. Like, you got to sell, and you got to promote. And so, yeah, those are kind of that's essentially like the strategy and what she did to be successful. Obviously, she put in so much work, and obviously she spent so much time and energy through it, and I can't just like gloss over that in this episode. It is a lot of work, but at the same time, she played it really smart, right? Like, she set the right intention. She really made sure there was a gap in the market. She validated her products. She made the best product possible, and then on the marketing end too, she gave it her all so that she had people to sell to. And then finally, when it came to her launch, she followed my strategies about doing the pre-launch, doing during the launch. And in future episodes, if you want me to go a little bit deeper on this, I totally can. Just let me know on YouTube. You can shoot me a comment or you can DM us at Recloseted on Instagram. But it is so important to be intentional throughout this whole thing. And I think the bonus thing that she did that allowed her to be this successful was that throughout the entire process of working on her brand, she focused a lot on her mindset and her development. And I have said this on the podcast before, but like you can have the right strategies and you can kind of be good at executing. But if you as a founder don't have the right knowledge and you don't have the right mindset, you will hold yourself back and you will hold your business back. And we don't want to be the bottleneck of our business's success, right? Like you don't want to limit your business. So you need to continuously be working on your mindset, continuously be working on your development. And so a couple of resources, just in case you're new to this and you've never done this, I highly recommend everyone read The Mountain Is You. I've talked about this on the podcast before, but it's a really good book on self-sabotage. And then recently, another book I've also really enjoyed is called Failosophy by Elizabeth Day. She talks a lot about failure, and it is so helpful because I think that sometimes when people are starting a new business, they are so afraid to fail. But in the book, she kind of talks about how everyone fails and we should normalize failing. It's like breathing or it's like blinking or, whatever, right? Like if you breathe or blink, you're not like, oh my gosh, I just blinked or I just breathed, right? So it's just normalized it. And just, I feel like my perspective with failure now is like if I'm not failing, I'm not trying hard enough and I'm not putting myself out there and I'm not growing. So I think those two books are really good places to start with your mindset. And then when it comes to your development too, if you get the blueprint, which I highly recommend you do, but if you get it and you go through it and you realize, hey, like Selina says, I need to create a website here. I have no idea how to do that. And like you're not able to invest in our Launch Your Brand course and you want to DIY it, which is fine, then you may need to like hire a web developer, right? So just like recognizing everything that needs to be done and then figuring out where the knowledge gaps are, like that can help you figure out what you need to work on so that you're not the bottleneck of your business. And so I wanted to do this episode to celebrate my client, but also use this as inspiration and motivation for you. I know that sometimes when you throw big figures out there, you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing, but also sounds so daunting and overwhelming because I don't know if I can do that. But if she can do it, you can do it too. Again, don't want to undermine how much work she put into this and how much effort she put into this because it is hard. But I do think that if you set the right intention and you follow the strategies I outlined in this podcast episode and you leverage the blueprint and all the other tools that I have, you will be successful so long as you work smart about this and you are intentional about it. So again, if she can do it, you can too. I believe in you. And if you have any questions, please leave them on our YouTube channel. You can go to youtube.com, search up Recloseted, and then just comment them on this podcast episode because I am going to be doing a Q&A episode to round out this series of launch episodes I'm doing to celebrate the Build Your Brand Blueprint launch. But yeah, if you have any questions, leave it on the YouTube video. You can also email us hello@recloseted.com or send us a DM at Recloseted, whatever floats your boat. But I just really want to help and I want to use this again as inspiration for you and motivation.